largest country in the world. Raw materials, unlimited. Manpower, 193 million. These are the three reasons why every conqueror in history has wanted Russia. And these are the reasons why the modern would-be conqueror wrote,
"When we speak of new territory, we must think of Russia. Destiny itself points the way there."
Yes, as we have seen, Germany's spirit of aggression was handed down from generation to generation. And now, in Hitler's Germany, the dream was world conquest. To such a dream, there could be only one answer: collective security. So, with this objective, in 1934, the Soviet Union joined the League of Nations. Again and again, before the League, its representatives urged binding agreements to support by collective action any nation submitted to attack.
The states I represent entered the League with the sole purpose of the maintenance of indivisible peace. The League of Nations is still strong enough by its collective action to avert or arrest aggression. There is no room for bargaining or compromise.
But while some members of the League were pleading vainly for the use of collective force to stop aggression, the world saw other members, Germany, Italy, Japan, withdraw from the League to follow the path of aggression. Manchuria, Ethiopia, then Hitler invaded Austria, Czechoslovakia, and in 1939, Poland. First step on the road to Russia. But his eastward march was interrupted by France and Britain declaring war. So the Germans were forced to turn west. And in 1940, as we have seen, wiped the last opposition from Western Europe. And while the Nazis were unsuccessfully trying to beat Britain to her knees, the German generals were already planning to resume the interrupted Eastern Blitz. The road to Russia was now open. But before that attack, preliminary steps were necessary. South and east of Germany are Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, Yugoslavia, and Greece. And Hungary had grain, rich fields of it. Grain too good for Hungarians when German soldiers have such good appetite. Hungary had bauxite. Bauxite makes aluminum, and aluminum makes planes. And Hungary had an army. Not the battle-trained German armies, but good enough to throw against Russian guns. Romania had not only grain, but oil. And Hitler needed every last drop of it to power his war machine. Romania also had men, more slave labor, more cannon fodder for the attack on Russia. And most important, Romania and Hungary both had Russian frontiers. And Hitler wanted those frontiers in the hands of German generals. Bulgaria didn't have a Russian frontier, but it did have bases. Bases on the Black Sea. Bases for German submarines to prey on Russian shipping. By the spring of 1941, the reactionary governments of Hungary, under the dictatorship of Admiral Horthy, of Romania, governed by young King Michael, who was only a tool in the hands of Hitler's puppet, General Antonescu, and of Bulgaria, ruled by King Boris, always a disciple of German imperialism. All had sold their countries out to Hitler. Now, threatened by a revolt of their people, they were only too glad to be protected by Hitler's
Very
army.
dangerous when people
So by March
refuse to
1941,
be part of the
German
United
armies were in
Nations,
occupation of Hungary,
NATO,
Romania,
the League of
Bulgaria.
Nations.
That still left
Usually they go
Yugoslavia and Greece.
hostile. Iran
How
has
long as
complete
they remained
capability to be 10
unoccupied
times
territory,
worse
they
than
remained the
Germany.
route for a possible Allied counter-invasion.
Don't fool yourself.
At one of their regular meetings, Hitler had assigned the job of conquering Greece to his stooge, Mussolini. The stooge was delighted. Here was his chance
They don't
to
want
prove
to
to
share
his
the
people
world
that
and
he
the world's
too was the
resources
conqueror.
with the other nations. They want it all for
But he
themselves.
was wrong.
The ones that refuse to be part of it. Just remember that.
Something. For after the fascist legions had blitzed on one cylinder this far into
Separate
Greece,
nations will be forever worrying about nuclear war and people invading you and stuff. Every time they need more resources, just can't mine their own fast enough or
Hitler
whatever.
was enraged. The failure of his
Need a
stooge
global
to protect
banking
his southern
system,
flank was delaying the attack
demilitarized
on
borders,
Russia.
one world government, one
He sent a
ID.
final ultimatum.
Much better.
Yugoslavs and
Let's
Greeks
continue the work
would surrender or else.
of the League of
The
Nations.
Yugoslavs and Greeks come from a long line of fighting men. Nazi slavery didn't appeal to them.
Cooperation and development. Separatists refusing to be part of it, considered an enemy.
On April 6th, German bombs told the Yugoslavians they were at war with Germany. The Nazis and Italians launched a powerful and coordinated attack from all their bases, supported by virtually unopposed aerial bombardment. The conclusion was inevitable. Although resistance was determined, the Yugoslav army was cut up into many small segments and captured. The war in Greece also began on April 6th. There, in spite of fierce and valiant resistance,
Nobody's exempt when someone tries to take over the world.
The Germans, overwhelmingly
They don't ask
superior in
nicely.
both numbers and equipment,
They jump your border and
forced their
stick a
way
gun
past
down
the
your
Stritsa
throat.
River, Mount Olympus, the famous passage of Thermopylae. And by the end of April, the swastika flew over the ancient city of Athens. The conquest of the Balkans was now complete. The whole force of Nazi might could now be turned loose on Russia. There was no time to wait. But time was Russia's
This Union of
weapon.
Nations can be done through peace treaties. Most of the nations that are part of it now have joined with a pen.
Were converted for war. Instead of steel for plows and tools, steel for shells and guns.
All nations are interested in the entire globe and all the resources it has. Just some choose to do it together, some choose to do it by themselves. The ones that choose to do it by themselves don't include other nations, and you're just in their way.
More and more men were called up to be trained, hardened, drilled, prepared to defend
One
their
world
land.
government is literally humanity's last hope. Most likely against a nuclear war. Let's see. Germany has invaded since 1200. They've invaded Russia like 4 times. You know, then you got the Palestinians and Israel, you know, the Jews. I mean, it's, for thousands of years, it's just the same fight over and over and over and over again. It just never ends.
It was from 5 different directions. And from the north, one extra, just for luck.
Navies are meant for invasion. No nation needs more than a National Guard. The UN is the only one that needs a navy to keep the seas free of pirates and
More than 2 million men.
stuff like that. National Guards are more than just protecting your nation. If you have natural disasters, they can hand out food, help clean up, medical aid. So National Guards are necessary, and they'll be paid for by the state, the nation, which will become a state. It's not really that hard to understand. But if you don't understand your own government and your own system, this is probably way above your intelligence level.
The capital of the Ukraine. In the first 30 days, von Leeb's forces drove to within
And most people,
125 miles of
9 out of 10, do not even understand their own government. But one thing's for sure, they do not want you to be separated. They're not trying to divide you. Things don't work unless you're working together.
Von Focht's army plunged 480 miles into Soviet territory. Russian city after the other was overrun by the invaders.
League of Nations wants nations together. Each nation wants their individual people together. So pretty much ultimately they want you together. The nations with their own individual interests are the only ones that want anyone separate, and you call them separatists.
Regarded as the key to Moscow. Simultaneously,
You need to wake up on that fact.
von Rundstedt's forces
Not everything's about rebellion and revolution.
This was blitzkrieg at its best. The world gave
Really looking to
Russia
unite
another
people.
6 weeks.
Unite the
And the
nations,
Germans issued a
bring the people
communique.
together, and then they end up having peace and prosperity. But it's not going to happen without a fight, because not everybody's going to sign on with a pen. So someone has to be forced.
The mighty German army started its career of blitz, smashing into submission one European country after the other. That same German army came up against a country that did not submit, despite Despite the fact that Hitler's army swept deeper and deeper into the Soviet Union, and by
Russia,
October
Iran,
the 15th stood
they've all been
practically
offered
within
the chance to
shadows of
sign
the
on to
Kremlin.
NATO, and they refused,
Despite
gave them
the
the
fact
finger
that the
pretty much.
Soviet government and all
You can bring up
foreign
one's
nations
past
were
and all you
forced to move to
want,
Khrushchev
trying to
700
insult
miles to the east.
and degrade somebody. We know we've made mistakes here in America, and we try not to repeat them, and we're trying to prevent any more guys like him
Despite the fact that by
out with their own
December,
interests
500,000 square miles of
and
Russian
willing to
territory,
commit genocide to
an
get it.
area equal to the entire middle western United States,
What you're seeing out there on the battlefield now is
yes,
nothing more than collateral damage.
despite
No one's trying to
Russia's laws to
depopulate
prevent
anything. No
agricultural
one's
areas,
trying to separate
her
anybody.
most thoroughly developed
It's
industrial
passive
plants,
aggressive. No one's being put on their knees
millions
and
of her
shot.
people,
No one's being thrown
thousands
into
of her
bake
tanks
ovens.
and her planes.
This is all
Despite
BS
everything,
created by
Those
little
6
rebellious
weeks that lengthened into nearly
people
6
that don't
months,
even get along in their
and
own
the dread
governments,
Nazi blitz that
let alone
spluttered,
anyone else's or anything new.
stumbled, and finally died. What had happened here?
Separatist
Let's try
nations
to
and
analyze.
there's separatist people and there's separatist
First,
groups.
in this titanic struggle, not only
Pretty much
two
can't
armies,
let them fool
but
you.
two fighting methods.
They'd like to see
Two
you mess and
strategies
fight
came
each other.
face to face.
Nothing makes them happier.
The German strategy was based on the well-tried Keil and Kessel, or wedge and trap maneuver. One wedge would be
But World
driven
War
deep into
I
the
never
enemy
ended.
territory.
Everything
to
you see
hook up
going
with
on
another
today is nothing more
spearhead
than a
driven through the
continuous
east.
trying to unite the
In
globe
the
and prevent
trap
this kind of
thus
stuff from
formed,
happening
The
again.
victim would be pocketed
People
for
much smarter
annihilation.
than ourselves
The German
have
plan
put
in every
100
campaign
years into
was
this.
to seek a decisive battle at the moment of invasion.
Upper-ranking war veterans of the first 2 wars
A gigantic ball
have spent a
destroying
lot of time thinking about how to prevent this stuff from happening
Remember
again.
the
And you can
campaigns
either
you have
help them,
already seen
cooperate
in
with them, or
film.
you can work against them,
Poland.
keep everybody a mess. I mean,
Concentrated on their borders.
it's not that
The
hard.
Blitz broke through. 18 days finished Poland. France, the Allied strength on the border, the breakthrough at Sedan, and the issue of France was settled. The Balkans, the Yugoslavians rushed to the border. The breakthrough came, and in 12 days Yugoslavia was gone. The Germans planned the same blitz
America
against the Russians.
closed down all the bases and left Iran alone, Iran would be the next Germany. Back then they needed an aircraft carrier to get halfway across the ocean and launch the planes that were limited on their travel by fuel restrictions. Nowadays one plane doesn't even need an aircraft carrier, it can deliver a nuclear payload in 2 hours, coming from shore to shore. No ships
Again,
needed.
the wedge would strike. Again, a segment
So
would be
if
lost.
you think packing up
But again, the line
and
would
going
stand.
home is the answer,
Until it became
you're absolutely
part of the
fooling
third.
yourself.
So the deeper the
That
Germans
Iranian
plowed into
dictator, he
Russian
would
soil,
definitely be like a
the
Hitler.
stronger their opposition. Until
There's no
finally
doubts
they
about it,
faced
he
an
would try to go
unfathomable
global.
wall, and were robbed of their chance to hit that all-destroying blow they had counted on.
North Korea, they probably
The
would too.
result? The Germans
Right now they have to go
conquered
past
land and
ships,
lost the campaign.
bases,
But the Russian
soldiers,
tactics kept the
so they're
main
kind
bulk
of
of their armies
trapped.
intact and made a long
But
war
if it
in
wasn't for those little
That
traps,
quick decision the Germans
you would
fought.
already have a couple of
And the
Hitlers
Russians
going
had other
right
tactics
now.
that threw the Germans for a loss. Germany had developed blitz warfare, mechanized warfare, armies on wheels, juggernauts to crush everything before them. But the Russians found a way to drag them out of their traveling fortress. They used their cities as strongholds and made the blitz come to them down alleys. The more a city was bombed, the more impassable it became to the German panzer. They made the names of these Russian cities as familiar to us as the
I've
names
got
of
over
towns
10,000
in
man hours watching videos like this. I watched a Civil War
Kiev,
50 VCR tape set 3 times, and I watched 2 different sets. I've watched sets on the Revolutionary War, Spanish American, yeah, I mean, you name it. Cinco de Mayo.
Scene of an heroic siege of more than 2 months.
I've studied them all, hours and hours and hours. I've even seen this a couple of times.
Which resisted every attempt of the Germans to
And you had
break
nothing
through.
else to do in between work. And
Here,
I did a lot of it back in high
months,
school
the
on my
Russians
summer
fought for
vacations
the
and stuff when I had nothing to do.
Inch by inch,
I just studied this
the
stuff.
Germans from the great Black Sea naval base located there. And finally, When the Germans entered the town,
They should have a current events class and then show videos like this too, once a month or something, in high schools.
House by house.
It's amazing how all the advanced education we have and people are just so unaware of what actually has happened and what's been going on.
Each house, room by room.
And what people are working on. You don't even have to be a genius. If you understand the way things work and the way they have worked, you'll know what the people around you are doing automatically.
But their objective was not to save cities.
Because they fight the same wars over and over and over again. Every 500 to 1,000 years. Every couple hundred years.
So the Germans were forced out of their
They
armored
just do it again with different people and different weapons.
And to die.
Each time the weapons get more and more advanced. So, I mean, if we don't end up uniting the world, it's inevitable we're just going to destroy it.
And generals may win campaigns, but people win wars.
Exactly. People need to start working together.
When the Russian people first learned of the invasion of their country,
democracy to unite it,
told of their
communism to keep it together. It's unfortunate people abuse their freedom of speech and stuff and use it to incite riots and all the other things. Cannot be trusted.
What piece of land.
Use it to try to separate people and create hate, prejudice.
This war is not an ordinary war. It is the war of the entire Russian people. Not only to eliminate the danger hanging over our heads.
But if you let the communists try to build it, they'll literally put all the little separatists on their knees and stuff. They won't treat them humanely.
The alarm was spread to factory and farm.
Some collateral damage is a hell of a lot better than the way the communists would build this. Believe that. But I don't believe democracy will ever be able to hold a one-world government together. It'll be too big, it takes too long, people are impatient, it takes too long to actually build it for things to actually start getting good. And people are impatient by nature, they'll start complaining, they'll freedom of speech, and they'll make each other unhappy, everybody get unhappy, and they'll incite riots and rebel and just tear it all apart, all their work, everything, all that death, trying to build it. It'll just all be for nothing. Once you get it, the communists need to keep their mouths shut.
If you could turn a lathe, you were a soldier. If you could harvest the fields, you were a soldier. If you could handle a locomotive or pilot a ship.
That's why those civilizations are 1,000 years old. Democracy is old, but it's been through many nations. Greece, Romans, America, so many melting pots, they just keep falling apart. And all it is that freedom of speech and freedom of press. They just throw everything that's ever been done bad at the people that make mistakes. They're gonna make mistakes. They just use that to tear it apart in their own unhappiness. No optimism or positivity or trying to work for a greater good, just tear it all apart. It's such a waste of freedoms. Use it for
giant dam of evil, into which had been poured not only steel and concrete, but 5 long years of Russian toil and Russian sweat, to yield the miracle of electricity to the farms and people of the Ukraine. Now, rather than let the power generated fall to the enemy,
should have never separated from Russia anyways. Russia gave them electricity, everything, there's no loyalty. Fighting against the government, that's because democracy got their hands in there. There's a bit of truth to that.
Their fields, their farms, they surrendered them to the flames, but not to the invader. That was the scorched earth.